Okay, hello. Today we are going to talk about test-taking strategies. If you look at the questions that show up on this page, you as modeling students or as 11th graders should know how to solve all these algebraic equations to get an answer. Let's see, okay, I'll show you the other part in a second. But you should be able to see an equation like that and say, if I'm going to solve for the unknown variable, I should be able to use algebra to solve it. That's what we teach you in algebra. And it's a good skill you're going to need for future classes if you advance in math. But today the purpose is I want to give you guys some test-taking strategies that you can use on standardized exams like the SBA if you have to take it, or the ACT, kind of any kind of an exam basically, where you have technology that you can use. And that's kind of the purpose of this. If you guys do this all longhand and you got to show your work and go through the steps, this assignment is probably going to take you a long time. If you know how to use, if you can, and know how to use technology, it could take you just minutes. It's that, or, a lot less time where you don't actually have to do the algebra. I'm a math teacher. You need to learn how to do the algebra for sure. But there's also times when you and any other student that takes a test that you have to take gets to use technology. It's important to understand how to use the technology. So that's what the purpose of this assignment is today. I'm going to do most of the odd questions. So please, make sure you understand it, and then you can apply it to the even questions to finish the assignment. Okay, step one. Let's say we get an equation like this right here. How do we go about using technology to solve it? Well, first of all, let me say this. When you take these tests, for the SBA, for example, math, there may be times when you get to use Desmos. So I'm going to show you first how to use Desmos to solve this equation here, but also other test-taking strategies where you can use a calculator. So let's talk about, I'll tell you what, let me start with the calculator one first. Sometimes the strategy depends on how they give you the information to solve the problem. If you've got a situation where you have answer choices and one of them is correct for solving an equation, the important thing to understand is that if this is the correct, if one of these answer choices is the correct answer choice for B, I should be able to take the correct answer choice. We don't know what it is yet, but I should be able to take it. I should be able to plug it into the equation, and whatever I get over here after I plug it in on the left side should be equal to what the answer is on the right side. Let me show you a really simple example just to make sure you understand the concept. Okay, so here's a really simple equation. If you're having to solve for x, you can probably just, hopefully at this point, you can probably just look at it and say, you know what the answer is, right? But let's pretend we don't, because on more complicated equations, like the ones we saw just a moment ago, it's hard to just look at it and see what the correct answer is. But let's pretend we just can't, we're not really sure. What we're going to do is use a strategy called back solving. Again, we know that whatever we put in here, when we add 2 to it, the result should be equal to 5 because an equation means both sides are equal. So what I could do is I could just start trying numbers. I could try 1. So 1, let's see if 1's correct. 1 plus 2, is that equal to 5? Question mark. Well, no, because that's 3, and 3 is not equal to 5. So that's basically, this is a strategy process of elimination. So then I would try 2. A 2 plus 2, right? That's 4, but that's not equal to 5. And then I would try 3. And I would be able to see that 3 plus 2 is equal to 5. So that's correct. And that's my answer. And that's how simple it is. But in a simple example, it's good to see that that's the concept behind it. That whatever the correct answer is, when you put it in for the variable and run it through and simplify, both sides of the equation should be equal. So let me go ahead and go back to the one that we saw over here. Okay. So now I've got 4 choices, right? I've got a negative 16, I've got negative numbers and a positive. I'm going to be honest with you. I like to start by plugging in or substituting in the easiest numbers first and getting rid of them or picking them, right? So I'm going to try that for this one over here. Now, if I've got a calculator, great. Otherwise, I might have to do some math. But let's just say I've got a calculator. So I'm going to go like that. And I'm going to, wherever I see the variable, I'm going to put parentheses so I can substitute in the 4, right? And then minus 3 equals 2 parentheses 6 plus 4, smaller parentheses here for the 4. So the first number I'm going to do is I'm going to try the 4 to see if B is correct, because that's the easiest number for me to plug in. Okay, and then when I do it, I'm just going to be really careful. If I've got a calculator, I'm going to use the calculator with parentheses. Okay, now you got to remember, if there's nothing in front of a number like a negative, that means it's a negative, whereas this would be -3, right? Because there's something in front of it. So I'm going to go -7, parenthesis, 4, parenthesis, and then -3, and then enter. So this side of the equation would be -31, right? And then I'm going to run it in over here. I can already tell just by looking at this one, it's not going to work because every single number I see over here is positive. That means I'm going to get positive there plus a positive times a this is going to be positive something. I can actually tell it's 16 plus 6. That's what? 22 times 2. So point is, this is not going to work. So 4 is gone. So I'm just going to try. Now I'm going to try -16, -13. But when I try those, remember that they're going to be in parentheses. So I do have to use negative for those. Okay. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to just erase this and erase that. And then I'm going to do did it in red. So negative, probably -1 would be easy. That's okay. -16. What the heck? It's only 2 digits to type in. So go like that. So -16, negative. Now we got to use negative since it's in parentheses, not minus. That's very important. Okay. So I go -7, parenthesis, negative. I got to do negative because it's in a parentheses. That makes it kind of like it's by itself. Okay. But then this -3 is not in the parentheses and there's something in front of it. So that's -3. Enter. So there I get 109. Okay. So that's 109 when this is -16. And then let me try the other one. Then I go to enter it in just like I see it. 2 parenthesis 6 plus 4 parenthesis again -16 parenthesis, and then parenthesis again, right? There's 2 parentheses, enter, and that's -116, okay? So that doesn't work either. So, okay, I eliminate it. So this can take a while if you have a big complicated one like that with numbers. So I'm not saying that's a real shortcut, but at least if you don't know how to do the algebra, this might be an alternative way to do it. So you're going to try the -13 and try -1, and one of those is going to work. Okay, so the next number I tried was -1, and both sides ended up being equal. So that told me that -1 is going to be the correct answer, okay? You can see on the calculator over here that I got 4. When I plugged in -1, I got 4. And I can see over here, if I plug in -1, 4 times -1, that's -4. -4 plus 6, that's +2. And then that result times a 2 over here. I could do it in a calculator and prove it, but hopefully you can see it. Point is, I tried 3 choices and I finally found the last one, D, that worked. So the correct answer is that. So now you can try it here. By the way, if you get a problem like number 2, you see there's 3 choices. If you try all 3 and they don't work, then that would tell you that there's no solution, okay? There's no solution to the problem. All right, so what have we done? We have basically used these answer choices to plug them in here. Okay, so that's something you can do. Now the next thing is, that's if you have answer choices. What happens if you get something like number 3 and you don't have choices, but you're supposed to come up with an answer for it? Now I'm going to switch to a different strategy, and that is if you have access to Desmos, and tests like the SBA do give you access to Desmos. So let me show you how to do that. Desmos. Okay, so we know how to go into Desmos, hit the graphing calculator. It might actually be set up like this for you on the test. I think it is. Okay, but the point is you get these different fields, and if you don't see a field, you can click on below it to open up a new field. Okay, so I've got these fields here. Let's go back to that really simple example that I showed you earlier with x plus 2 is equal to 5. Let's say we get that equation, but we don't have any choices, right? So all we have is this equation right here. We know the answer is going to be 3, but let's pretend for a moment we don't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go to X, and I can use my keyboard X, or I can open this one over here and I can click X, and then I can use my keyboard. My plus is by the P, so plus, or I think you can use the symbols over here. Wait, I think it was in the last one, wasn't it? Here's a plus. What was it? 2 equals What was the answer? The equation? Yeah, x plus 2 equals 5. Okay, so that's the equation. I just entered it in. Now, check it out. Over here, what do I get? I get a line. And what do I see? I see that this line goes through the x-axis right here. And if I click on that dot with my finger, what do I see? I see 3, 0. Remember, if you've got a coordinate point, the first number is the x value, the second number is the y value, right? So what that's telling me is it's basically giving me an answer that we could figure out using algebra if we did algebra or if we work backwards. So that means if you get a question like this that you're trying to solve for, but it doesn't have answer choices to try, you can still, if you've got access to Desmos, you can actually plug it in. So I'm going to show you this one right here, okay? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do 3 right here, and I'm going to go ahead and X out on this one here, and then just enter this one. So I'm going to enter it in. I'm going to go 3 parenthesis A, should be a valid number, but if you're going to use one letter for a variable, you got to use it for all the other ones. Okay, equals negative 29 plus A. Okay, so it's not letting me use A. So if you see one with A, just replace it with X, okay? There you go. And I got my blue line, and what's the answer choice? Negative 7. Isn't that nice? So that tells me that negative 7 is the answer for number 3. Very easy, right? Okay, so you go ahead and try this one, and then I'm going to show you what I get on it as well, and just to confirm it. Okay, so I did that, entered it in, and what did I get? I got negative 1 for my x, for my variable. Okay, very easy, right? Okay, so that's how you do it. And if you've got Desmos. If you don't have Desmos, then I'll show you another option if you've got a graphing calculator, But let's do a few more where we just enter in the equation. Okay, now I'm going to skip down a little bit because 11 and 13, we have the same strategy that I've already talked about. First of all, if you get a question like this is a quadratic. You just took this one the other day. If you get a question like this, remember, these answer choices, if you plug them into the equation, like the first one, both sides of the equation should be equal. But you got to be careful. Sometimes there's a positive and negative, or there's two answers. So, for example, A has 7.483, B has 7.483, but then A also has a negative. So you'd have to, if this number works, then that means A and B could possibly be correct. But then you'd have to try the negative to see if that also worked, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and put it in real quick, and I'm going to show you what a quadratic equation looks like if you've got Desmos. If you don't have Desmos, you just take these answers, plug them in until you find the choice that has one that works on both. But let me go ahead and do it with Desmos. Okay, clear this out. Now, one thing to note, remember, so if I put in 8, instead of K, I'm going to just put X, okay? Just change it to X. And then when it's squared, I can click this right here, or I could click and then minus 8 equals 384. Whoops, 384. Now, if I look at this, and you may want to kind of zoom a little bit on it, are there two answers? Well, you may have to zoom out a little bit. This is what it looks like when there's two answers with a quadratic. So you got to kind of make sure to check for that. Here I click and see negative 7 is one of the answers and positive 7. Okay, so when I go back to this sheet over here, that tells me that C is the correct answer. See how easy that was? Same thing over here. You just enter it in just like that and you'll be able to do it. I'm almost running out of time, so I'm going to go kind of quick on the next thing. Okay, another kind of question is called systems of equations. This is where you have two equations, right? And they have the same two unknown variables. If I just graph only one equation, I'm going to see a line that has infinite number of combinations that for x and y that would equal 28. But I want to find a combination that makes that equals 28 that at the same time equals 11. Again, here you can take 6 and 5. Remember, the first one's always the x. You can plug it in, and you can try it to see if it works on the 28. And if it works, then also try it to see if it works right there. And if it works on both, that's the correct answer. So that's plugging in the answer choices. Now, what happens if you get one like this where you don't have answer choices? Well, we can use Desmos again. Let me show you this. Okay, I'm almost out of time, so I'm going to go quick. I put in both equations, as you see, and then I go over here, and where they cross, that's the answer. So that tells me where they cross. I touch it with my finger, and that tells me that 6, 5 is the answer. So I'm done with this video. I'm going to make another one for the graphs. But that's it, guys.